Yeah,
We are recording.
it's a very good. Okay. All
So how
right.
you doing, man?
Hey, good, good, good.
What's wrong? What's up with your voice?
What?
You
No,
sound different.
no. No, I haven't spoken to another human really in a while. It's been a few hours.
Okay, what? Any reason in particular, or?
No, just no one's around. I,
Okay,
I was
okay,
asleep. I was asleep. I
okay.
took Emery to school, came back, took a rest of like an hour, and now I'm up just reading some random stuff and watching Jackie.
Jackie?
Jackie
Oh,
Latif,
Jackie Tits.
my stock guru,
Okay.
and I'll probably be drinking more coffee later on today. I'll tell you that right now. But I took my multivitamin, and that should be kicking in soon. Um, I didn't get a chance to watch Weapons, but I was curious what it was even about. I didn't even like check it out or anything.
I mean, you don't have to watch it, but like I knew zero about it going in, like nothing. Like I didn't know if it was a comedy, it was a drama, an action, or whatever. Uh, didn't know if it was real life or animated. But my cousin, who I trust his taste in these matters, he saw it recently and was like, you got." He said to me and my brothers, like, "You guys got to check this movie out." So that was all I needed to know.
Hmm.
So I went in knowing like zero. And I think if I went in knowing what it was going to be, I mean, that's the way I prefer to see a movie is like knowing nothing.
Mm.
Um, then you can have like a real experience.
Yeah,
If
I
you
mean, I,
go in
I
and
don't
you're
really
like,
watch previews anymore if I'm going to see the movie because now they just show you everything like really fast.
yeah,
I see
exactly.
everything. It's
Uh
insane.
huh. Yeah. So you know what you're getting into, you know what the mood's going to be like. And so you're like, okay, I'm going to watch an action movie or a comedy or whatever.
Yeah.
Like for me, I like to go in like completely cold and blind and then experience the movie, completely. And and I think if I hadn't done that for this one, if I had like known what it was about and what the tone or blah blah blah, I think it might have been a very different experience.
Okay.
Uh, but that being said, whatever. I want to talk about the movie and how it's kind of like an analogy, or in my, even though it's interesting because it hit me so hard and it spoke to me from an analogy perspective to like the world as I see it.
Mm.
I was curious to like, and I looked into like what the writer director, meant and intended, to because whatever I might think it is, I just want to see where they're coming from.
Mm.
Um, and
Do you want to go into it or you want to wait until I see it?
um, I mean, it's up to you. I mean, I'm down to go into it if you don't care.
Yeah, no.
Um,
I'll definitely end up watching it. I'm just curious if you had something interesting or if it was on the top of your mind or something. If not, we can go whatever's up with you.
um, I mean, yeah, I might as well because it's fresh on my mind. I mean, if
Okay.
you're cool with it, I'm down with just telling you my thoughts.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah, it's basically like uh, you know, kind of like a mystery horror film, a mystery thriller or whatever.
Yeah. I'm
Um,
gonna look up a preview while you're talking about it.
okay,
So
okay.
that'll be interesting. Um,
Um, and basically, it was written and directed by one of the guys from that show, The Whitest Kids You Know.
yeah.
Um, which I always thought was a pretty funny, sketch comedy thing.
Yeah.
Uh, and and again, I looked into afterwards, like,
Oh, is this where the kids are all leaving the houses or something?
yeah,
Okay, okay, okay. Yeah.
uh, and basically, like, the director, writer, director, um, he lost a good friend, uh, in recent years,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that this movie
That's interesting.
was like, I don't know, you can say a meditation on that, or
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
influence from that experience.
Yeah.
Um, and it seems like unless there's something secret that the director is not sharing,
Mm-hmm.
which I'm not assuming, but I'm just making that caveat. Like, assuming that's not the case, like, I think this guy just made this movie based on that. And, um, you know, it's kind of like the whole movie, and especially if you don't know anything about it, like I didn't know anything about it, you go in cold and you just like experience it and you don't know what the hell's going on, but it's like an interesting mystery, and it's obviously a mystery,
Yeah.
and you're like, but you ever see that HBO series or hear about it called The Leftovers?
No.
Um, it was pretty good. Whatever. It was I'm not a biggest fan of that filmmaker, like the J.J. Abrams
Mm-hmm.
guy.
Sure.
He did like Lost
Oh
or
yeah.
whatever. I remember you liking Lost a lot.
Oh
I
yeah.
just
Rachel and I would that was like when we were first like dating, you
yeah,
know.
right.
Yeah, we were watching that I think it was Monday it would come out or Tuesday or something. I
And I
can't
feel like
remember.
Chris loved it too,
Oh well, he
right?
and Sue were
Remy?
also into it. Yeah, we were all
Yeah,
because
yeah,
we lived right across the hall from each
yeah.
other at that
Totally,
point. So
totally.
we'd
Yeah,
watch together sometimes. Yeah, absolutely. Hmm.
yeah. And I don't know, like just for me, I tried and kind of quickly was like, no, 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 I'm just not feeling it.
Not your type of thing. Yeah,
Yeah,
gotcha.
not my kind of thing. Um, and that guy made the show for HBO called The Leftovers,
Hmm.
um, which I don't know. I'd heard good things about it from some people, so I was like, I'll check this out. And I watched the whole series. It was it was good. Um, it it had some really good stuff to it. I'd actually argue it has some great stuff to it.
Mm.
But then it also just has a bunch of stuff that and I didn't know who made it. So the first like season and a half, I think maybe like let's say there's like 3 seasons altogether
Yeah.
of The Leftovers, and the first like season and a half, 2 seasons, I was like, all right, I'm into this, I'm digging this, and then I
Hmm.
found out that it was J.J. Abrams or whatever, the Lost people that made it.
Yeah.
And then once I knew that, I started it's I don't know. I was affected by that knowledge or influenced
Mm-hmm.
by that knowledge,
Hmm.
and it went from me being like, "Oh, there's some really profound shit in here," to me being like, "All right, this is just kind of like some kitchen sink approach of like, oh, wouldn't it be fun and cool if we just throw this against the wall and see what sticks?"
Yeah.
Like some random bullshit, and but that being said, it was like this interesting. It starts off as like an interesting mystery, where some big event happens, and just these people end up dying. I think it was, or
Okay.
something like that, and it's like this mysterious event, and then everyone's greatly impacted by that event, the survivors and stuff like that. Um, and so this movie, at first, I was like, I was getting vibes like that. Like, oh, okay, this is kind of like Leftovers. It's like this interesting mystery. This event happens. No one knows why it happened. And some are moving on with their lives. Some are more impacted and they can't really move on as easily. Uh, and so I was like looking at it like that.
Yeah.
And then like as it goes on, it's like I don't know, as shit starts getting revealed and it like turns out to be like a thriller, like
Hmm.
horror movie.
Hmm.
It was like, whoa, I did not see that coming.
Mm.
I thought there might be, I just thought it was gonna be more like Leftovers.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden it just took like a super dark turn.
Mm.
And I was like, whoa. And I don't know, I dug it. And there's this scene in it because they really hold it off. They hold off the reveal for a while.
Okay.
Um, and and again, if I knew, oh, this is gonna be like a horror film, then it would have been different because I would have been like waiting. All right,
Sure,
when's this
sure.
shit
Yeah,
coming out?
when's the paranormal thing gonna happen? Or
Yeah,
when's the monster?
exactly.
When's the shark gonna appear? Yeah, exactly.
Exactly,
Hmm.
exactly. But not knowing that's going to appear and thinking it's just some like mystery that will be solved. And then you find out, whoa, it's this really dark, twisted shit. I don't know. It worked well, and basically there's like a scene where these two guys are hanging out together. Like, because all of a sudden it's like such like a normal mystery movie, or like you ever see that movie Gone Girl, or the book, read the book Gone Girl, like
Yeah,
whatever. It's
why
just,
do I know about that? Yeah, I'm not sure. I remember either hearing about it or something. I'm not sure. It's not coming to my mind though.
yeah, I mean, I don't know. The book, there was a book, and then it
Yeah,
got made to a movie with like Ben Affleck or
yeah,
something,
yeah.
and whatever. That was like a solid. It was solid. But it starts off like a mystery. Like there's a missing person or a murder, and you don't know what happened, and the townspeople are all reacting in different ways. So it like touches on group and crowd psychology, and but yeah, but this was like it just felt like one of those,
Hmm.
and then all of a sudden it's just like whoa.
Mm.
This got real dark real fast, and there's a scene where these two guys are like hanging out. It's basically it just like abruptly turns.
Mm. Hmm.
Um, and I just was like so pleasantly surprised by it,
Mm.
and just couldn't help but like, whoa, and
Mm.
it totally worked for me. But there's a scene where these two guys are hanging out, but it's just like just as shit's starting to get exposed and get weird and dark.
Hmm.
So you don't fully know what's going on at all. Um, and and then
So basically, the idea is there's some weird stuff going on with the kids. They keep leaving their house or disappearing or something like that. And the town is trying to figure out what's going on.
yeah, it's just like one day all of a sudden, like there's one classroom,
Hmm.
like there's 18 kids in the class, and 17 of the kids just go missing one day.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's like, all right, like, why are these kids missing? And so that the
Right.
movie is a lot about that.
Yeah.
Like, why are these kids missing? And everyone thinks it's the teacher did something
Of
and it's the
course. Of
teacher's fault,
course.
right? And
Of course.
and there's that one kid left over, and they're like trying to ask him questions, but he's just a little kid, so
Right.
they don't know what to do. And so again, it's like it's really interesting, like group psychology,
Hmm.
reacting to trauma kind of thing that I don't know, like I thought was just done really well
Cool.
and really good. But then like again, like these two guys are watching like like a national. It's like there's the weekend, and they're watching like a National Geographic,
Yeah.
and then about this like parasite that
Mm.
takes over the
Hmm.
brain of ants.
Yeah, absolutely. The
Um,
that mushroom, cordyceps, I think. That's at
yeah,
least
it
one
might.
of them. There's a couple of different ones, but yeah, I know what you're
Okay.
talking about. Yes.
Yeah, I don't remember the specific term, but
There's a couple of different ones. It's crazy.
okay, yeah. I
Yeah, it's
mean,
really
it's
interesting. Yeah.
like
Hmm.
the whole idea of parasites is super interesting, and not to mention like I feel like it's very relevant
Mm.
parasites
Hmm.
to
Hmm.
what we face as a world right now,
Mm.
you know, and you know
Things trying to take over our mind.
Yeah,
whether
and you,
physically, medically, psychically, whatever.
right, right, in pretty much almost every single way. Um, and and so like, but there's no hint anything about parasite.
Hold on, you're cutting out. Bad connection or something.
Oh, sorry, one sec. Just give me one sec. All right, how about now?
Yeah, yeah.
Is
You're
this
saying there's
better?
like no
Okay.
foreshadowing or something.
Yeah, there was like no foreshadowing that I saw. And and whatchamacallit, and then all of a sudden, like basically like this character, the villain, the monster, uh basically starts showing up, but it's like a person, like a witch,
Mm.
and uh and they're watching this parasite show,
Mm.
and and I'm like, oh, it's a parasite.
Right.
And like that's what's going on. But I didn't know. But I was just like, okay, clearly they're talking about parasites, so this is clearly like a parasite thing. And it was funny because I, talked to my cousin afterwards about the movie, and I brought that up, and he was like, "Oh, I didn't even think of that."
Mm.
Like they didn't make that obvious, and
Okay.
I don't know. And I heard in some analysis afterwards that, oh, parasite, it could be about like the drug addiction, because whatever, this friend that died, something with drug addiction, it could be something like that. And sure, like that's fine, right? Like an addict, the drug can become like a parasite
Sure.
in a
Sure.
way, right? Or at least comparable.
Sure. Of course.
In this thing that the person feels like they can't be without, and it takes over their, I guess it's like where they get their dopamine from, so they're like, well, I will do whatever I have to do to get that, dopamine. Um, but it's basically this woman who's this witch. Actually, it's kind of almost reminiscent of Game of Thrones, when they have
Okay.
that red witch
Mm-hmm.
who
Yes.
takes, who like has that guy Stannis under her
Yep.
control.
Yep.
And then you find out it's like this old ancient
Yep.
thing, and but she takes on the form of this
Yes.
younger
Yes.
red witch, and so it's like very much like that. It almost like steals or borrows from that.
Mm.
And but it was just like the way that she's able to do this basically like voodoo stuff,
Mm-hmm.
that weaponizes these people and turns them into weapons for her. And it was such a good analogy for like MK Ultra, in the mass hypnosis. That's because clearly, at least in my mind, it's pretty fucking clear that what's going on now is these different mass hypnosis, MK Ultra kind of thing, where through various means, not only just the direct messaging and propaganda of whatever the different corporate medias, and it's even beyond corporate medias now, because especially what we're seeing with especially, I mean, it was happening before this, but after the Charlie Kirk assassination, the way Israel is just like giving $7,000 to all these influencers for like, their posts, it's like now like the reward is out there, and it's like, who is going to refuse that reward? You know what I'm saying? It's like this great thing where it's like it's going to weaponize even the people that are claiming to be independent and alternative media.
Yeah.
Like, how are they going to turn down 7,000 a post, or something along those lines, to just make a shitload of money?
Yeah.
Like what's going to stop them? Like integrity,
Right.
But that's what, to me, the people that aren't going that way, they're the ones who have the real integrity. They're the ones who can't be compromised or taken over by the parasite.
Yeah.
Um, and not to mention, I'd say that the relationship between, say, for example, the United States, the citizens and the government, and there's the citizens, the government, and then the oligarch class that owns the government and possesses the government like a demon would to a body, or a parasite would to a body, a host, and uses that government to basically coerce the citizens to like the vast majority of the tax revenue. It's like this giant parasitic
Right.
relationship,
Yes, yes.
where they've taken over the government, and now our money has to be, our taxes have to be paid to the government. They take that money because instead of just spending their own money on black ops and wars, they'd much rather just use our money,
Right, right.
and when you have like hundreds of millions of people in a country, paying taxes, under threat of punishment and law if they don't, then those people have to pay that, and then that money goes there, and it's so many people paying, so much money, and there's so many, and it goes to so many different things, uh, and projects and whatnot, that no one agrees with all of it. Like, whether you're left wing, right wing, center, or whatever, like we've all got things we approve of and don't approve of. But it's like, well, you can go and run for office or try to help this politician win as opposed to that one, or this is democracy, this is how you can participate. But it's like, we know that, kind of like, if there's a pizza pie, like one pizza pie that represents the tax revenue and where it's going to go, right? Like you said, like, I think we should house and feed and take care of everyone.
Yeah, all the basic
like,
needs of all the beings on the planet. Yeah,
right,
right.
and
yes.
It's like that could be done.
Oh yeah, easily. It's not about the like lack of ability or money or whatever to do it. Yeah, no, it's not even close. No.
But that's part of the whole idea of survival of the fittest, and the the kind of Darwinian philosophy,
of course,
is a justification of like,
of course,
like we don't want to do that,
right?
But that doesn't sound good,
no.
So we have to manufacture consent,
yes,
from all of the citizens, so that they'll be okay with, instead of taking care of everyone, we're going to just devote all of these resources, or the vast majority of them, to the oligarch class, so that they can so they can go try to overthrow Venezuela, so they can go try to overthrow Iran, so they could, whatever, give all this money to Israel, and do all these things. And it's like, meanwhile, everyone's like, wait, why are we doing all this?
Right.
And the majority, or at least, like, so let's say like 1/3 of the country is Republican, 1/3 is Democrat, and 1/3 is independent. That's the game, and the Republicans usually go along with what the Republican propaganda tells them to. The Democrats usually go along with what the Democratic propagandists tell them.
And the independents get to choose from both piles.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Right?
Yeah.
And so so there's this like game that's played, and most people don't really, I mean, come on. It's like, I mean, I don't know what the fuck to do about it. I know how to diagnose some of these things, but I don't, it's not like, it's not like I have the answers, and I don't know anyone that does have the answers, but like there's this game going on from this parasite class that's basically wants to own everything that's worth owning, and once it's not worth owning, they're like, all right, like the saying, the profits are privatized and the risk is socialized, you
Right.
know? And so fascism is ultimately corporate welfare, corporate socialism, you know,
Mm.
um, too big to fail,
Yeah.
whatever, tomato, tomato.
Right.
And the parasite class wants to, and especially once there's so many people and so many laws and so much different legislation and like whether it's any of these giant bills like the one that the Build Back Better, or what was Trump's version of Build Back Better, right? Like,
Big beautiful bill.
right, like that was fucked up. So I was so crazy. I'm like, wait, you're both of you parties are using the BBB. It's like, and no one is noticing that
Yeah.
shit.
Yeah.
Like, but everyone is. It's how you play this game and keep it going, so that there's one side is good cop, or the other side's bad cop, depending on where you're seeing it from, Republican or Democrat. Whereas most independents know, look, they're both playing it together, and or at least trend closer to that than to the Republicans or the Democrats, who are like, no, my people are the good ones and the other side's the evil. And if only our good side would win, then good would prevail. Um, but really, it's this game where it's like, dude, there's just so much money that they get to, take and use and devote to whatever the fuck they want to devote. And it's usually to overthrowing governments or developing certain technologies or products,
Yeah.
that they want done. And it's like how they get free R&D. And if something goes wrong, then the taxpayers just bail them out. Like whether it's the 2007,
Sure. Oh
2008,
yeah.
right? Uh, and it's like, and it's funny because, and someone like whatever, Obama, Bernie, and Trump, like they all got to pretend, and Biden, I guess you could say, like, all got to pretend, that no, 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 we're the last hope, that it's all going to shit, but we're here and we're gonna, you
Right.
know,
Right.
help save you guys.
Right.
And but meanwhile, it's like people are realizing, like, like the whole with this thing with the Epstein files or Charlie Kirk or whatever, like the people on the MAGA side are like, oh my God, like Trump isn't any different,
Yeah,
you
it's a
know?
terrible realization, right?
Yeah, right. It's like naked lunch. You wake up and you finally, for the first time,
Yeah.
see what's at the end of your fork that
Yep.
you've been eating.
Yep.
You've been eating this fucking toxic shit
Yep.
and
Yep.
thinking it was good nourishment.
Yep.
And how did you get fooled? And how has this gone on for so long? And no one has been saying this, or very few have been saying it,
Right.
and it's like, well, that's the game. It's like, how do you, give $1 and take two?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
not an easy thing to bamboozle people, and and how do you get people to not realize the obvious? Like, and I don't think that it's all about Zionism. I really don't. I just think that they're this aspect of the empire that is so clearly the best chess players and punching above their weight amongst all of the different interest groups that are steering the oligarch parasite class of the empire. They're the ones with, they got 5 or 6 hands on the steering wheel, of, let's say, give or take, of these different interest groups. Then, and you probably got like a bunch of overlap between those interest groups, especially in the banking sector, the banking and energy sector, that the big pharma was an offshoot of the energy, you know, um, like going to overthrow Venezuela in part, or the attempt to, is like, I see it as like, they're like, yo, we need to keep on overthrowing these countries, taking their resources like Venezuela,
Yeah.
so that now that keeps the game going, like that. Now when they do that, they get like a bunch of more quarters to put in the jukebox, to keep the music playing, you
Yeah.
know. And as long as the music doesn't stop to a dead
Right.
halt,
Right.
right, then the game just keeps on going. Um, and maybe you have these old, right, like the old game, the church and the monarchs, they had it for so long. And then the New World Order is like in part like how to defeat that or replace that old order or get it to negotiate
Hmm.
um, so that it's not going to monopolize power moving forward the way it had in the past. Because whether it's a king or the church or whatever, you had always had these like super wealthy oligarchs going back to ancient times, that there were struggles of power between, to some extent they want a king or someone, as long as that king understands the game, that the oligarchic classes, the king is there to, the king will be paid well and live well, and everyone will worship them like a god. But the king, a good king, will know that they've got to work with these oligarchic families, and houses, uh, and that's the game. Just kind of like Gore Vidal would say, the number one job of a politician is to never give the game away.
Hmm.
And and you could argue that someone like Trump, one of the things that maybe he was doing, if you want to give him the benefit of the doubt, was he was somewhat understood this because he was a very low level oligarch. And I would just say he was more of a useful idiot of oligarch.
Yeah.
Not so much that he was an oligarch himself, but because he had been a bag man.
But his dad was, right. I mean, as we keep going back, it
Right.
gets more and more rich and intelligent people, as you go
Yes.
back in the line.
Yeah. 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 But think about, like, exactly. No, you're totally right. And think about how Trump had his dad. So it wasn't like Trump just came out of nowhere. Like, Trump had his dad who was like, look, son, here's how the game works.
Well, I think it's great. Is it grandfather who got all the Tesla papers?
Right? Something like
Right.
that.
Yeah. So they're wound up in all this stuff. It may be kind of like a,
right.
um, you know,
Or like Kennedy. Think
it
about
gets passed
Kennedy.
down in the family, right? That
Yeah,
that system
exactly.
that system is like everywhere. I don't care what government, what
Yeah.
culture is. This idea of you pass things down to your eldest son, and then
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
pass the business down to your eldest son, and so
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of like you're right to it, even if you are a totally useful idiot. You are the grandson of this guy. It's like, okay, we're gonna keep this kind of game going, right?
Yes.
Whether it's
Yes.
controlling families, controlling it through a family, or you're
Mm-hmm.
controlling bloodlines, or
Yep.
you're controlling passing the crown down, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense why people do it that way. Blood is thicker than water. It's,
Mm-hmm.
if you're
Yes.
raising your kid, then they're going to have a certain level of loyalty to you. Who knows how strong it will be, but in most cases, probably if you're brought up by somebody, you're going to tend to look at certain things the same way as them.
Right.
Probably the
Like,
least. Well, I don't know that it's. I don't know. I might argue a little bit the other way, because I think
mm-hmm.
about adolescence
Mm-hmm.
as the time where we start learning how to say no,
Mm-hmm.
and arguing against power structures, wanting to argue and resisting its power structures. But that can probably be like kind of beaten out of you, or I would say in some ways that's kind of the pressure that you're going to feel within, if you're part of some oligarch family or something like that. It's like, no, we're special, we're chosen, we're the
Right.
best, we're the
Right.
richest.
Right.
And so you don't go against the family. It's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think you can get probably folded into that or convinced that, you know, no, I'm gonna uphold our family line,
Hmm.
our family business or
Yeah.
authority, because it's bigger than my desire to want to like break away or be free or think for myself or something like that.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna get paid this way. Okay.
Yeah.
My pockets are lined this way. So it makes a lot of sense why somebody would go towards that
Right.
or maintain that
Right.
order.
And like we were talking about Trump before, and you brought up the father and the grandfather, or whichever one
Yeah.
is supposedly got the Tesla stuff.
Yeah. I'll look that up
Um,
while you're talking.
um, that which makes me think of Kennedy, JFK, where his father, Joseph Kennedy, you know, who made his fortune in bootlegging and during Prohibition and stocks and the market and all that and mafia type shit. Uh, he was able to, he had a bunch of children.
Do you see
And
this? I don't know if you're watching. You're probably doing your thing, bro.
I'm not.
So,
What's up?
bro, John G. Trump, renowned electrical engineer and MIT professor, bro. That guy was smart. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, let's see. Who was Trump, electrical engineer? But I'm trying to see what was his what's the relationship? What's the
To
relationship to yeah
to Trump.
yeah, who is
Was he
that?
the grandfather, the uncle,
Yeah,
or
exactly. That's what I want to
yeah? Okay. Well,
know. Anyway, I'll keep looking
it's
while you're
it's
talking.
not it's almost arbitrary. It's just some family member, but ultimately, you know, it's like if you have a
Paternal
parent.
uncle.
Okay, okay. Um, so if you had, whether it's your dad, your uncle, your grandfather that played in this game, that participated in this game, whether it was one of the Trumps, whether it was one of the Kennedys, you know, uh, you had someone who knew, hey, this is how the game really works, more or less. And they can teach their kids, they can give them this insider knowledge
Yes.
that unless you have that insider knowledge, you just think, like the people I know, I know a couple of people that play the game that are like super wealthy, and they're fucking clueless.
Of course.
They know how to make a lot of money. They fell in love with an idea or two, or an ideology, and they're brainwashed by that, and that's their computer programming.
Well, yeah, if
And
you're making a lot of money, how can you possibly be wrong?
yeah, exactly. And then once you think, well, I've been so successful because clearly I'm so good and smart,
Yeah. Right.
and I work with such good, smart people, so I'll just keep on keeping on. And
Of
it makes
course.
sense. Makes
Yeah,
sense.
absolutely it does.
But trying to understand the things we're trying to talk about and understand, like those people are clueless about this.
Oh
and
no, we're
think,
like, yeah, no. We're not talking about accumulating how to accumulate money, and then their
yeah,
brain like freezes and they're like, oh
yeah,
wait, well then what else is there to talk about?
yeah,
What else
exactly.
is there that's more important than
Yeah, yeah.
that?
They're like, I have 5 minutes to listen to you. And then after that 5 minutes is done, it's like I no longer have the time or care to listen to you. And
Well, because we're not talking about how to make money,
yeah, exactly.
or
Exactly.
how it's awesome to have a lot of money. One of those two things.
Yeah, yeah. And everyone just cares more or less about defending their bloodline or their family or their ideology, you know. Um, and
or as Eugene would say, the thought wants to keep itself going. This is all about the thinking mechanism, and it wants to keep it going. It wants to maintain its continuity
and
at the cost of anything else, at the cost of absolutely anything else.
And that thinking continuity and this idea of thinking and how thinking will improve things is similar to like a parasite, or can be compared
It
to a
is. The
parasite.
word is a virus.
Exactly.
If we're going to go back to Burroughs, the
Yeah.
word is a virus.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so Burroughs, right? So
Yep.
Burroughs came from wealth, right? He had like his elders, whether it was the dad or uncle
Mm-hmm.
or someone or grandparents, like someone made some sort of money. And then he was this guy that was this brilliant guy that,
Also a little
knew.
weird.
Oh, yeah, totally weird. Yeah. But I'm just saying, like, that he was, because amongst the beat generation, he was the elder
Mm-hmm.
of them. The
Mm-hmm.
rest of them, he was like, I don't know, 5 to 10 years older than the rest of them. Um, and most of the other ones, not all of them, but a good, Kerouac, Ginsberg, they were blue collar people. They didn't come from much. Like, they didn't come from a fortune. Like, they were just, super talented and intelligent and all that. But like Burroughs was brilliant, but also came from money, and seemed to have educated and introduced the other ones to a lot of ideas that they hadn't heard before, you know. But ultimately, we're just talking about in part like the family, like JFK would not have become president if his father hadn't been super wealthy and a powerful player, and his father worked out a deal with the mafia because there was like a contract on his life, and so he had to work out a deal with the mafia, worked out a deal to save his own life, and basically, I think also in that process was like, if you guys help my son become president, then we'll all be rolling in dough together. And then when the mafia helped JFK get elected, I think in Chicago or in Illinois or something like that, helped sway an integral swing, strategic swing state kind of thing that helped JFK get in. And then once JFK got in, he started going after the mafia. And that was one of the double crosses that the mafia was like, had incentive to go after JFK and be willing to work with the people, the legitimate oligarchs. They had a common interest and a common cause in getting rid of JFK, amongst others. But understanding how that game works about the mafia, the oligarchs, Wall Street, he was and the bootlegging, he was able to help his sons, and JFK and RFK were not like they had a different son that was the one that they were grooming to become president and really go into politics and power, but that one died. And then JFK was the one that like stepped up.
Mm.
So he wasn't necessarily the first idea to be the heir to their fortune. And
okay.
Yeah, the one who was supposed to be the real alpha died, and so JFK ended up being the guy. But ultimately, like whether it's Kennedy or Trump or whoever, I mean, the Gore Vidal, for example, the way he was able to know so much of what he knew about was his uncle, I think, is his uncle or grandfather was a senator, either senator or congressman, and was like a blind guy. He was like known as like the blind senator or blind congressman. Okay. And I'm just saying, like all of these things, like I don't think anything can quite replace access to true insider information. Like you're an amazing chess player, so Emery will have a head start into chess if he wants it.
Yeah, right.
For example, it's kind of like that. That doesn't mean he'll be interested in chess and want to be great at chess, but if he wants to, he will have that. And if we're talking about the old school way of families, before ultra modern times, like, yeah, that's, you went into the family business. That's just pretty much the way it was. And if you went against that, you were the black sheep, you were the prodigal son, you were the one that, all right, you're not going to help the family and prioritize the family's well-being over your own, then fuck off. Like, have at it, but you're out, and we'll go with the other siblings that want to, work towards this end. But basically, like, that's why it's like, if you have, it's kind of like the five arrows, from King Lear or
Mm-hmm.
Ran,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
like the right. And so, or like the Rothschild thing, the five arrows, and it's like, look, one of you will go to London, one of you will go to Paris, one of you will go to, Vienna, and the one will be in Germany and all this, and it's like, um, and the whole point is that it's like, it's not like one of you is going to dominate the rest, but but together you're all much stronger, and that ultimately is a bigger picture thing. And that's why it is tricky to be, it's like the game of Risk. If someone starts running away with the game too quickly, then it's basically incumbent on everyone else to make an alliance and take down the person who's running away with power.
Yeah.
You know, and if the people can't, they're like, no, fuck you. Why should I go and sacrifice A, B, and C to take down the big guy? No, fuck you. Like, you do it. If that starts happening, then no one stops the ascendant power. No one stop. And so I do think, like, oftentimes that's usually what leads to, it's either that or the people band together, take down the ascendant power, and then say, okay, now we have this alliance. And now, I have this territory, you have that territory, and we work together more or less. You make your money, I make my money. But when there's some gray area, when there's some weird conflict between our territories, we're gonna, sit down at a table like in The Godfather, and we're gonna work it out. Because if we don't do that, it turns into a war, and then we kill each other, and we waste all of our resources killing each other. And as we're killing each other, there'll be another ascendant power that takes over, and then we've lost it, and then we're out. So I'm just saying there's a weird balance of power games that those of us who aren't born into this, we can read about and speculate about, and know our history and know philosophy and know things like how markets work, or how chess works, or how poker works, or these games and these strategies that all go into how these power games and power structures work. And it's really, but the problem is like, when there's an existing power structure, so say all the stuff going on with Jizrael and Charlie Kirk, for example, or that guy there's, Cash Patel's suing for $5 million now for posting that shit about his honeypot girl, and like, and that's waking up, while they do that, and they're trying to scare the shit out of anyone who might want to speak ill of the jizz. They're also waking up countless people being like, oh my God, I can't believe this is really happening. And this is so obvious, and then you all of a sudden you have someone like Candace Owens, like, being like, I'm leaving my prior employer because they're trying to censor me, and I'm going to go after the truth wherever it leads. And you know what? I can do it now because I have enough of a following. And then she builds up a bigger following by sticking to her guns and having her own integrity.
Yeah.
you know, and but I just watched some clips of her go on that CNN interview, with this woman who was like, basically the whole argument is like, but what you're doing is anti-Semitic. Don't you realize what you're
Oh
doing and what you're
Lord. Oh yeah, I saw that clip. I know what you're talking
yeah,
about. Yes.
right? So like that's pretty much like the only game in town that they have is to just try to claim you're a racist,
Or
you
evil.
know, or evil. But racist is like is a type of evil that most people in the system just agree like, well, there's nothing worse than racism.
Hmm.
Like actually, there are some things worse than racism, but racism is pretty fucking bad,
Right.
Um, but ultimately, having that, if you want to be a Candace Owens and put that message out that she's putting out, there's going to be so many, propaganda snipers all around her, that if she doesn't dot one single I or cross one T, like that's all they're going to focus on. They're going to be like, oh, Candace Owens, she just doesn't dot her I's or cross her T's. You shouldn't listen to her. And it's just no matter where she goes, that's going to be waiting for her. And someone like Trump, like I'm still in the camp that he's held hostage. You know that that and I'm open to that. It's more than that, and that he's like, no, I'm not held hostage. I'm just playing this role right now, and I'm more than happy to play that role of pretending to be a champion of the people, and obviously, like, there's a lot of truth to that he's pretending to be something he's not, like, obviously. But
Yeah.
I'm just trying to say there's some wiggle room, some nuance to it that in my mind is I don't go to the place that guy Tom Longo goes, where he's like, no, he's fighting them, and because ultimately Longo is talking about, and there's a truth to this, is that the city of London is such a big part of the head of the snake that and that's something that idea has been promoted not exclusively but largely by the LaRouche groupings and the Lyndon LaRouche people
Yeah.
for a long time, and they've quote unquote thoroughly discredited that notion, even though they haven't. And I think it's clear that the city of London is like the original Wall Street, or not the original, but more OG than Wall Street, and that Wall Street's kind of an extension of that. And maybe at some point there are domestic oligarchs that came up that maybe are truly independent. But I think the discussion and the debate is about the nuance of who is against who in those special interests, at the small round table, of the big boy table. And there, obviously rings within rings, but trying to get closer to the top ring is ultimately part of the mission, you know, because until we, like, because some things are easy and you can just be like you understand chess really well. So if someone makes a certain move, like
Hmm.
let's say you have a couple of 1,200 rated players playing against each other,
Yeah.
right? Like 99% of the time, you're going to be able to watch their game and then be like, oh, okay, here's what this person's doing wrong. Here's what they could be doing better. And you understand the
Yes.
game from a much better perspective than they do. So you can analyze it very accurately 99% of the time,
Right.
you know? And you and I, we're trying our damnedest to do that with this, but we're still just, we're little people, we're outsiders. We weren't born into that, you know? We don't have this grandfather who's like, listen, John and Josh, here's how it really works. Like we don't have that. So we just, you look into what you look into, I look into what I look into, and we come together and we're like, all right, let's try to make sense of this shit, you know?
Yeah.
And and we're trying to understand how it really works. And we know to some extent we've got like I don't know. Let's over. I bet you like from a broad stroke perspective, I think we understand a good amount of it, you know. But there's still certain things like we're not the chess masters yet.
No.
You know, where we like, because if we were, we'd be like, oh, okay, this, and this is happening, and here's how, and it's like it's just like 2 + 2 = 4, you know, and it's like no one will be able to really dispute us, and you know the way like say like Max Blumenthal understands certain things about Israel and
or
some of our
freaking
foreign,
Roaring Kitty with GME, you know.
yeah,
If you take 50K and you turn that into $1 billion, then you know something, okay?
yeah, totally,
You know
totally,
something
you know something,
that most people
you
don't know.
know,
Because
yeah,
otherwise everybody would be taking their 50K and turning it into 1 billion.
right, right,
Damn.
damn. But then okay, but then just and you know much more about the GameStop than I do. I know most of what
Yeah, I know too much.
I know most of what I know about I know through you, and I'm just
Yeah, I
saying
know, I'm sure.
I'm saying I defer to you with it, but there are certain things that make me skeptical about some of this because I see the economy of action element to GameStop that um where they're like, hey, let's try this out. Because what we want to do, like in that movie Network, is we want to make a world full of where all the plebs and all the citizens, they actually get a tiny little stake in what we do because we want them invested
Right.
in what we're invested in.
Sure.
Because when it comes down to it, we want as many people supporting what we want as possible.
Oh yeah, you want as many retail people in the stock market as possible because they're all super dumb and going to lose their money.
Exactly. They need the retail to be in the market because if it's just a bunch of big whales fighting each other, which is normally what it's been, you know, and until the big whales say, you know, all right, and then eventually there's a few big whales that are like, I don't care. I don't want to cooperate with your shit. I'm not going to join your little club. I'm just going to do my thing. Mm-hmm. You do your thing. I'm doing pretty well with it so far. So I'll keep on doing pretty well with it. And good luck to you, you know? And then they're like, then the big whales that are together and cooperate are like, all right, we got to get rid of this fucking big whale that won't cooperate with us because this guy is going to be a real fly in the ointment. You know?
Yes, yeah. And no, there's always those battles too between because there's people on the long side and people on the short side, you know.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Or like
even the big dogs.
Yeah, exactly. Just like in The Godfather, like, all right, they want to start selling drugs and they need Don Corleone's, you know, cooperation for various reasons. So they go to him and they make him an offer. And he goes, hey, you know what? We could probably make a lot of money with this, but you know what? I don't want to get into drugs. Drugs is a little too nasty of a business, you know? And he's like, I don't want to get into that. And they go, okay. And then they're like, all right, we got to kill him now.
I know, right? Yeah.
You know?
Wrong answer.
Yeah, exactly. You know, we'll say, okay, thank you for hearing us out. We wish you the best as long as your interests don't conflict with ours, you know. And now, you know, as soon as I walk out of this place, I'm contacting my people and we're going to figure out how to kill you, you know. Yeah. And so on one element, there's that. You know, on the other element, they're like, how do we get as many retail investors into the market? Because when we want to get out of something, we have to sell it to someone.
Right.
And if the other big whales that we're cooperating with, like, we don't want them to buy it unless, you know, we want to find that other whale that won't cooperate with us and fuck him.
Yeah.
Or, you know, and then we can fleece the retail and the rest of the people. Because that's really like how this parasite game works. You know, you find more and more hosts, you find more and more growth, you know, and more and more people that you can exploit, you know. And that's why like the whole like open door to China was, you know, dude, we can just fucking have them make all of our shit, you know, and have the slave labor there. Like in America, in America, they're asking for too much now. They want a higher salary. They want these benefits. Like they want these vacations, healthcare and shit. They want us to treat them like human beings, and that's a problem. Like, like we
That will
played
really
that
affect
game.
our bottom line.
Exactly, exactly. And some of them, some of the oligarchs, like the Henry Fords, were like, hey, you know what? How about we just pay our people enough so they can start buying our products, and that will help growth. And some of them must have been like, oh, that's a good idea. But some of them were like, no, 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 you don't get it, Henry. That's not going to work for X, Y, and Z reasons. And then he's like, well, I disagree. And they're like, well, okay, well, we're gonna have to fuck you up then, and they have all these different experiments going on, like the Nazis. They had set up that experiment going. They set up the Soviets. They set up the New Deal. All these things where they're like, all right, let's see which one of these variations will win out and be but there'll all be some mixture of, again, the things that are too big to fail, and so and if something's really going to go wrong, then you just need one or two fall guys. You need your Bear Stearns. You need your, you need your Lehman Brothers that are
Sure. Oh,
gonna
absolutely.
and then you dump all the toxic shit on them. They go under, and then you'll
It's
get a
like awesome.
bailout.
It's like it rinse and repeat. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. And then now you get, then the taxpayer will bail out those companies, but they're really just bailing out the counterparties, because those companies are going to go under, and you need you need to, like, someone's got to take the hit, so that the rest can thrive, and it's kind of like the art of war. When you're one, pretend to be many,
Mm.
when you're many, pretend to be few. It's basically the whole game is about a type of deception. And ultimately that's why everyone playing the game is doing everything they can, spending so much money uh, to know who they can trust, who they can't trust, you know um, uh, like who is loyal, who's not loyal. Kind of like when you have a bunch of minions and you find out one of your minions, you don't know who, but one of them has been leaking shit. One of them has been spilling secrets to, and then so you tell each one, okay, you tell them, okay, everyone, like, whatever. I say A is going to happen. You tell a different one B is going to happen. Another one
Right.
C, another
Yeah.
D. And then when you find out, like which one said that thing you didn't want, then you're like, okay, now I know who it is, and now you're going down.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, sorry, like, sorry, Godfather. When he finds out that it was
Yeah.
Abe Vigoda's character,
Yeah.
that was, it's like, hey, how about for old time's sake, Tom, you let me go? And he's like, can't do that, you know? And it's like, well, that's the way it works, and there's always gonna be someone that sees the opportunity that's like, hey, you know what? I think the ship is sinking. I can get out of this ship and get in with the Barzini, and make it. And it's again, if the ship does sink, then you're gonna, make out well. But if it doesn't, like, and they find out that you did it, then you're fucked. So I do think The Godfather is a great analogy to
It
help,
is.
understand these things. And The Parasite is a great way to understand it. Because it's like everyone's like a drug addict. Like everyone we know is like a drug addict in this way. They're dependent on this nonsense, whether it's Democrat or Republican propaganda, whether it's on these iPhones, whether it's on, you need electricity and the plumbing, all this shit, because none of us can do it independent, or very few can do it independent. So what you want to create a centralized system where everyone's dependent on you, and if they're dependent on you, it's like you've become the parasite, the ultimate parasite.
Yeah. Hence why like general strikes work so well.
Right, right, right.
Like, oh crap, oh no. Right. It's like
Yeah,
nothing else really works for the little guy except for that.
yeah,
Like, wow.
right, right. And that's why, some have talked about how, for example, I remember Carol Quigley writing in that Tragedy and Hope book that basically the having unions ended up making it easier counterintuitively for the real oligarchs, because they had to just bribe and
Yeah,
corrupt less people.
absolutely.
You
Oh
know, they just
yeah.
had to just bribe and corrupt the heads of the
Yeah,
union, you
exactly.
know,
Exactly.
and then but every so often you have these union leaders that were not corruptible, and then those people had to be taken out or undermined or fucked with, and that's where you see things like whatever, the Epstein shit, you know, the Meyer Lansky shit, you know, the Diddy shit, you know, where it's like, look, dude, we need contingency plans, we need insurance policies, you know, we need blackmail on all these people just in case one of them isn't going to cooperate with the game, you know, and and I mean, it seems like at this point, like so much is consolidated into the whole Jizreel thing, you know, that I mean, I'm, you know, like the Larry Ellison from Oracle buying up all the media, but Oracle is like, right, they're in major trouble, right? Right. I mean, haven't you seen this stuff about? I mean, you probably know about it better than I do. I've just seen some like headlines and glanced through it, you know. But they're in like some major trouble. Uh, I don't know,
Yeah.
with debt or whatever, and that's the whole thing, though. But all of these corporations are some form of compartmentalized risk, you know, where you're creating a corporation to do a specific thing, and you don't really care whether that corporation goes down in the long run or not. It's just meant to do its thing. And if it goes down, you build up a new one, you know? Um, and I guess you could tell by how, if something is truly too big to fail, then that's when it's clearly an integral part of the centralized power structure, you know?
Yeah.
Um, and those who are not part of the centralized structure that might feed into it indirectly, like Candace Owens once did, you know, but now she's like, but that's the thing. Eventually, someone like Candace Owens wakes up and she's like, oh my God, I've got to leave the Ben Shapiro network, you know, because they're part of the enemy, you know. But now you're going to have all the corporate media descending on her, you know.
Yeah.
Um, but luckily she's pretty smart and she's pretty sharp, you know, and hardworking, and you know, and now with the internet, you know, you have so many internet sleuths that work as a decentralized, you know, AI in a way, you know, of
Yeah, just recently this guy tried to fake this like finding this alien artifact, and
mm-hmm.
he kept it going for a while and was convincing a lot of people, and then said he was going to drill into it, and then he faked this like blue orb showing up and like killing him. He like faked his own death. And
Huh.
enough people within a day or two, I'm talking about like immediately, enough people had like figured out from clues, like from like magnets that he had used and like a pin and like the what streets he was driving on sometimes, to like figure out
Mm-hmm.
where he lived, where he worked, his name, everything. And they were like calling his workplace and stuff like that.
Sure.
And he had to come out. He's like, okay, it was fake. Like, damn, like you guys are crazy. Within like a day or two, you know? Like, holy crap. It was really interesting.
Well, that is interesting. I didn't know anything about that.
Yeah,
But
James
that
and the cylinder. James and the
okay.
cylinder. That's the and so many so many YouTube videos jumped on the bandwagon and did reactions to it, and all that kind of stuff. It was extraordinarily interesting. I'm pulling up some stuff here while we're talking about it, just to give some context, but it was really fascinating.
That is fascinating. And I guess to me, on top of it, um, what you would call it, like something that's fascinating is just like with everything being surveilled now, which is like, or right, like some recent thing where it was whatever the stuff getting surveilled and then being held against powerful interests and working against powerful interests. It's it's like it works if everybody knows that they're being surveilled and that everything they're doing is being listened to, unless they go deep into the woods or the mountains somewhere.
Even then, I still think I don't know.
Yeah, right. Even then, who I don't know. Maybe they can still do it. You know,
If our brain is emitting electromagnetic radiation, which it is, electromagnetic waves, then you just pick, and you can pick that up and you can translate it. Boom! It's like I don't care where you're at. It's like we're like walking cell phones, bro. It's like
yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, no, and really no, I just personally at a personal level, for me, it has been freeing for me to not believe really in privacy. I don't really believe that privacy exists because even if we're going to go spiritual level or like, let's go Akashic records, everything is recorded. No information is ever lost. If there is a God, then God is omnipresent, knows everything, past, present, and future. There is no privacy. This idea, because I think it's really related to guilt and shame, the idea that there are things about myself that I need to hide. I need to try and not let people see me masturbating or naked or like thinking negative thoughts about hurting other people or something. I don't know, whatever the shame guilt complex feeds off of. A lot of times it's kind of based on our body, right? It's kind of like some bodily, you don't want people to see you peeing or shitting or having sex or something, right? It's usually based on this shame guilt complex on our bodies, but like placed right there. That's usually what it is. And I think that's like one of the most biggest barriers for being free.
Right. No, I agree. And but there was like once a time where we could, right, clearly where we could talk before there were these electronic recording devices that could be, I mean, because I remember, reading about how like even like go back to 100 years ago, they had these like bugging devices and shit like that, maybe very primitive forms of them.
Yeah, I was just looking into, I'd gone into it before, but I went again because the James story was reminding me of some stuff. And
the James
cylinder, the fake UFO guy.
Okay, yep. Okay.
Because it was related there. There was like these symbols drilled into it that looked similar to the boogosphere that has, and those symbols on the boogosphere are look way more interesting and correct, but whatever. But that linked to the CARET program, the CARET program, that a whistleblower out of California talked about working on some different alien technology, and that the symbols on the devices were the program for the system, that there wasn't like hardware or software or different parts, that it was all one material, and that by engraving the language, the symbols, the language on the device, that is what tells the device what to do. Once it's in the anti-gravity field, once it's in a field of effect, then that is what tells it what to do. And it was just so freaking fascinating. And so my brain was remembering that. So I went back to take a look at that stuff. Hold on, I sent it to a friend of mine. So I think, or maybe I can bring it up here. CARET UFO. There it is right there. Boom. And we go to this. And so here's a few people caught these pictures, and you can see on them these symbols and alien language. And he talks about, and to connect what you were immediately saying, he was talking about them having, as an electrical engineer and stuff, having these tools back in like the 40s and 50s that would blow us away now. Like they already had these electronic drawing things that could rotate stuff, and they had these. He's talking about the early days of Xerox. I didn't know how into advanced technology Xerox stopped being Xerox and they became Paxil, I believe. And he was talking about how they were instrumental in reverse engineering some different stuff because they were at the top of like of a lot of technology back then, like laser stuff and printing and computers and all this kind of stuff. And yeah, so he was talking about how they had so much amazing technology way back in the 40s and 50s. They already had so much amazing stuff.
I mean, because the Manhattan Project was, in the 40s.
Well, yeah.
Right?
Look, if we're already getting downed, UFO. The magenta thing is in the 30s. If we're already by that point, and we're talking Einstein time, also where the guy that they all talk about, it's like they said, they asked like Einstein, they're like, are you a genius? He's like, no, I'm not a genius, but there is one genius. And he named this one guy.
Walter Russell?
Name? What?
Was it Walter Russell?
No. It was a mathematician. He could do these incredible calculations in his mind and stuff. Anyway, it seems like there's some documentation that we had these advanced technologies way back then. We're trying to reverse engineer them. And we probably had the greatest minds at the time, including Einstein and this guy that I'm blanking on. Guy, so famous. You're going to get all of the best people, all the smartest people, and you're going to have them think on this, right? You're going to have them think on this, come up with ideas and plans and methods and blah blah blah, and we're talking about in the 30s and the 40s. Like, wow, that's epic. That's epic. And to me, it makes me think, oh man, it lends more credence to the idea that a lot of the stuff that was seen later on, I think, especially around military installations or the Tic Tac stuff and stuff like that. That you test this stuff around your military people that are already told to not talk about shit. Because then also you can tell the commanding officers, hey, we're going to run this test, we're going to send some advanced tech, like, just so don't bug out. You can let other people bug out. That's fine.
Stand down.
Probably so much of the stuff that we've seen is not only extraterrestrial, extra dimensional. It's going to be our shit from the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. You know what I mean? And what I think too is like a CD player, a record player and a CD are like the same thing. You're taking a thing and then you're engraving some little dots on it essentially, and then you're replaying it back. It seems like magic, but it's not. As soon as we understand how a law of the universe works, being able to manipulate it is so simple. And that's what I thought about the anti-gravity stuff. I think what we'll find out is that actually it's so fucking easy. Once you understand the method and you understand the materials needed, it's going to be like making a record or making a CD. It's not going to be any big fucking deal, which I think also contributes to the holy shit, we've got to keep this under wraps. Because that this is like something that people will just be able to do. They'll just be able to like make their own movies and make their own CDs and stuff. It's like, oh no, this will be usable. This is like a law of the universe. It's like science,
Right, yeah. No, like Krishnamurti would say that it's just it's all fucked because eventually someone's going to come up with an atomic bomb the size of a pen,
ballpoint pen,
and then it's all done. And so speaking to your point, that it's like fucking eventually almost anyone's going to be able to do this if they had access to the proper know-how and information. That's why we've got to work together to make sure no one does that. And there's always going to be someone that's like, fuck you guys, I don't want to cooperate and play your game and just be your little bitch. Like, I'm going to do what I want to do with it. And it's like, look, you guys, you don't understand. We've been at this game for a long time, and we're here protecting our interests and all of our interests, because eventually someone else is going to come and use this shit and use it against us. So that's why we want to know about it ahead of time to make that so that it can't happen, and we have to prevent that from happening. And that's why it's like you want some, you want to know who's loyal and who's not. Who is the one that's most likely to say, well, fuck you guys, I'm going to secretly go and do something else with it. It's like, all right, we got to watch that guy a little extra close, because they might not be down with our plan and our approach. And ultimately it's like that, like in Risk, if you can't, if it's like, hey, that guy's running away with it and that person's going to take over the whole game, and we all got to line up and work together to make sure that this person does not win it all, and people aren't cooperating with us, they're not willing to work with that, they're all just being like out for themselves, and all this shit, it to me at least, it really goes into the legit concerns that power would have, and that those of us who don't have that power, yeah, it's easy for us to judge them and say they're a bunch of Nazis and they're a bunch of scumbags because, they're responsible for millions and millions of people dying and suffering, but it's like, we're not giving away all of our money and resources to homeless people, or you know what I'm saying? Like, we might give away a certain amount. We might help people.
Oh, no, I'm definitely selfish. No,
yeah, no, exactly. Like,
right.
We're all selfish, but some people are like, no, I'm not selfish. I do X, Y, and Z. And it's like, oh, okay, you need to.
Oh, that's like the most selfish thing.
Exactly.
So you're make yourself feel better about like it's still the self, right? It's the maintaining the self, which is what thinking does, So
yeah.
If you're thinking, you're selfish. Sorry, that's just a fact. What I tell my clients is the fastest way to be selfless is to be selfish. That we need to take care of ourselves first, then and only then can we start taking care of other people. Because people will try and be selfless first.
The smartest way to be.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll try and be selfless first, but that will have a limit because we're leaving ourselves out of the equation.
And I say that, the smartest way to be selfish is to help others.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
But some people, they're like, no, it's not selfish. I'm just helping others. And it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, it's the do-gooder's high, as Yuji would say.
Yeah.
Because it feels good.
Yeah.
If you didn't like it, you wouldn't be doing it.
Exactly. And as someone like Alan Watts would say, the goody-goodies are the thief of virtue. It's like they only know about little virtue. They don't know about big virtue. Because big virtue is not trying. Little virtue is like, I'm not selfish. It's like, oh, okay.
Right.
You're still like a child in that way. You still think that, everything is everyone else's fault, and you're the one good person. Just you need those illusions still, as opposed to like
the one true Scotsman or whatever, or no true Scotsman or one true Scotsman. I can't remember. One of those fallacies. By the way, I got to go in a second.
Okay.
Somehow the time just flies by, bro.
I know.
God, we hit on so many random subjects. Right? It's so awesome. It's so awesome.
Next time I had a thought between last time and this time that we didn't go into, but maybe next time we'll. I feel like Jack Kruse is basically like, he's like a Yuji Krishnamurti. And a lot of people, because I've sent
just like destroying stuff.
Yeah, he's just the great destroyer. Like I think Immanuel Kant was called that, like the all destroyer or something like that. And I would send people stuff from like Ram Dass, send them stuff from Al Watts and stuff from Yuji Krishnamurti, And like most people will be like, oh, like Alan Watts, I really like that, or
Yeah.
Rambas, I really like that.
Yeah.
And it's like Krishnamurti, what do you think about him? They're like, yeah,
No,
that
I
I didn't
hated that
really
guy.
like.
No,
I didn't
I
really like
know.
that guy, and I'm like, that's so what Jack Kruse does.
I know. I know.
It's so like that. It's like only certain people can
No, and they're
appreciate
both
Yuji
like, if you don't
Krishnamurti.
like it, you can leave. Like, nice meeting you.
Yeah,
Bye.
nice to
It's like,
meet you.
wow,
Like,
crap.
yeah, like you want me to sit here and lie to you and tell you bullshit and pleasantries? No, 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 no. That's not what I'm doing.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, let's do a Jack Kruse deep dive. I'll check out some of the videos I haven't seen before, but I've seen a fair amount this time, but I'll shore up my understanding before next time.
Awesome, awesome.
Well, awesome talking with you as always, man. I'll talk to you soon.
Great talking to you, man.
And see you next time. And I'll post this up. For some reason, our last episode, 2 episodes ago, got a boost. I don't know what the last one did. I haven't checked, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, well, probably because we had a similar name as another one. That's my guess.
I think it was because the first topic covered was Charlie Kirk in the title. Not in the title, in the topics. I always put all the topics.
Oh, okay,
and that, and that's a pretty popular one. Although it's getting less now, right? The news cycle is starting to move on and turn forth,
Yeah.
It's like
totally.
Charlie Kirk, you mean Epstein? Anyway, I'll post this up later today and I'll talk to you next time.
All right, sounds great, man.
Have a good rest of your day. I'll talk to you later.
You too. Later, Dogon.
Okay, later. Bye.
Bye.